Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Legends of Tomorrow. So, we finally got our first real good look at the Justice Society of America. Pretty badass. They literally kicked the Legends' asses. I love how Ray was just kind of like, oh, whoa, okay, stop. We give up after everyone kind of got their asses kicked. And I love the fact is that Jax is kind of like hitting on Stargirl the entire episode. Just like, wow, who are you? It's like, wow, you're cute. And even Sarah just kind of like, really? I'm sure you were more focused on getting her numbered and fighting and whatnot. And Ray brings up a good point. It's like, the reason why they work so well is because they're a more organized team than us. They fall under the line of one leader, and that's Rex Tyler, which I'll get to in a second. But it kind of brings up the question of like, hey, the leader of this group was Rip, and now that he's gone, it's like, hey, we got to find another leader. And lo and behold, who steps up? Stein. More specific, because Rex assumed Stein was the leader anyway, and Stein didn't bother correcting him. No one did. And that kind of got to his head, because Jax had to tell him multiple times, like, yes, you're the smartest person on this team. You come up with very good ideas, but it's like, you're not leadership material. Because it's like, when the going gets tough and guns start blazing around, it's like, because we see that later on in the episode, like, things start falling apart, because it's like, there's no time to think of a plan, because it's like, Jax says it best. It's like, you need someone who will act. It's like, yeah, there's moments to kind of think and just try to, like, be very logical with things, but they need a leader that will make orders. It's like, okay, the situation is this, we need to do this, and that. It's like, we just need someone who have to, like, make the final decision, no hesitation. And that's, sadly, that's not Stein. Because I guess when you look at it, he just feels like he's the most qualified, because it's like, well, he's the most, in his words, most experienced. I mean, you have a an arsonist, you have an assassin, and then you have, like, Ray. And it's like, that, they're not the most qualified people to be the leader of the team. Honestly, I was thinking, like, I legitimately thought it was going to come down to Henry. I thought, like, they're like, oh yeah, he's the historian and everything, which I like his side of the story in this episode. For one, finding out that he's Commander Steele's grandson. I struggled with that, because it's like, I had to look him up, kind of be a little more familiar with him, because he also goes by the name Citizen Steele, so it was the thing. But finding out that, that was his grandfather, that kind of brings up the stories. The fact is that he was like, I grew up, hearing stories about you. You were a hero. You were amazing. But it seemed like throughout the episode, Citizen Steele kept kind of giving them the cold shoulder. But you kind of find out why later in the episode. It's because the way that Henry looks at him, it's the way a lot of people look at him, like he is a hero. But, he doesn't want to be looked at as a hero, because he has to do a lot of things that probably aren't the most heroic things, but he does it because so no one else has to do it. He doesn't want to disappoint people. He doesn't want people to look at him and be inspired and think he's such a great person, but then, he doesn't want to disappoint them. He doesn't want to let them down. And for Henry, for him, he's all he's wanted to do. He grew up hearing stories about his grandfather, and he just wanted to be like him, to be a soldier, because it's like, for his entire life, he's been kind of sheltered by both his dad and his mom. I mean, they have good enough reason for it, because he has hemophilia. Basically, his blood doesn't clot, which is something he's kind of hidden away from everyone. But he just wanted to be a hero. That's why he's kind of on this adventure too. Which brings up another thing. It's like Sarah saying, like, no, you can't be here. It's like, at the very least, everyone up here on this team, we're heroes in a certain shape or form. We're trained, whether we have superpowers or not, because in Sarah's case, at the very least, she's trained. Ray has his mind plus his suit. So it's like, hey, like, you're not qualified, to be up here. Because, for her, she's like, I've had enough blood on my hands. I don't want more. He was like, oh, you mean Rip? Like, because there's a lot of people that have died, and it's like, oh, what about Rip? Like, to me, I was thinking more so Captain Cold than anything else, especially because they had a little bit of a something. Really wish that would have went somewhere, but it's like, it makes you, because I think I heard that, like, Snart is coming back, but I think he is purely villain this season. Possibly, I don't know. I might be spoiling that for you guys. I do apologize. That's what I've heard. I don't know whether that's 100% true or not. You might end up looking this all up afterwards and be like, oh yeah, that's 100% true or not. I'm wondering under what circumstances. What will most likely be the case is it'll be Snart from a different point in time. Him before he became the good guy that we kind of got to know last season. Even though he's a criminal, seeing him as kind of the good guy, that we kind of got accustomed to last season, the person that kind of led to that whole thing between him and Sarah and whatnot. But, Sarah has enough people's blood on her hands, and she doesn't want more. She's like, okay, we in a team, we can handle our stuff without you. But it's like, almost fine, But for him, he's just there because he wants to help out. I mean, because we learned some fascinating things about, Henry. The fact is that he speaks all these different languages. He's pretty decent with a gun. He's like, I can take care of myself. And she's like, with all this, why become a historian? He's like, I have my reasons. It's like, what are those reasons? I mean, as we see who your grandfather was, but it's like, why? It seems like it's more than that. Michael, what I'm curious about though, because I've obviously. I mean, first we gotta look at Eobard. Oh yes, just that. Oh God, Eobard, Reverse Flash being a villain on the show is so good. Like I said, I get the feeling this has to be, just because he's not on the Flash right now, makes me think. Out of any point in time, I get the feeling that this is Eobard after he helped Barry come back from the same Eobard that helped Barry come back from Flashpoint. I'm thinking this has to be that same Eobard, or it could be Eobard with the whole time travel thing. It's like there's no telling at what point in Eobard's life this could be. But he introduces a serum that was basically like, hey, give it to the Nazis, everybody becomes superhuman, and one of the Nazis ended up becoming superhuman. The fact of the matter is they gave it to Henry to kind of help with his wounds and whatnot. So what I'm wondering is that going, because it's like, oh, he has his hemophilia and everything. I'm wondering, does that mean either he's going to end up with superpowers now, like he's going to be super strong and whatnot, or he's going to end up, at the very least with a heightened healing abilities? Deja vu. I'm having a serious case of deja vu right now. That's weird. Never mind. I don't know. Maybe it'll give him accelerated healing, maybe superhuman strength, stuff like that. I don't know. We'll just have to kind of wait and see on that regard. But it's very interesting. Because I don't really know that much about the Justice Society of America. Like, I think I brought it up last season. The little bit I know about them is based on Smallville. So from my knowledge, especially because of Vixen, it seems like, well, Vixen particularly in the TV show, obviously, but I'm saying like, it seems like it's kind of a mantle passed down from family member to family member. So I can only assume, I was like, because I saw like a picture before this episode, like last week, and I was like, is that Vixen with the Justice Society? And I was like, that's crazy. But then I was like, did she call herself Vixen? I'm looking at her, I was like, oh, that's not the Vixen from Arrow. I was like, maybe that's her grandmother or her mother. Because I've yet to see the animated series, because like they're showing previews for like the newest episodes, and it's like, oh, the villain was like, oh, you remind me of your mom. So I can only assume that, it's a family thing, to my knowledge, like the whole like power thing. Because someone had thrown that out there, it's like, it'd be kind of interesting to see Vixen, like last season and everything, when it was all said and done, like, oh, to see Vixen on the show. And maybe that'd be the case. Like, maybe the Vixen that we know, present day, 2016, ends up joining up with him. And now I'm thinking about, like, I brought it up, and I need to go back and watch that. Because, like, when that episode of Arrow came up last season, like, I knew who Vixen was because of like the little bit I've seen in the commercials, but that was it, because I hadn't watched any of it at the time, and I've been meaning to, but I just haven't taken the time to. So maybe at some point this weekend I'll try and do that, try and get a little bit informed, because I know there's at least one other person. I've seen a picture, but I didn't look too closely at the picture. So I'm wondering, was that person Vixen? Like I said, I didn't get good enough look. So is it Justice Society Vixen, or is it 2016 Vixen? Either way, I'm fine with it. I kind of want it to be, I feel like out of anything, it should be 2016 Vixen. So, I mean, maybe it's not Vixen at all, but I mean, we'll just have to wait and see in that regard. But I found it very interesting because we finally got a little bit more of a side look at the whole situation with Rex, because we end up finding out that the Rex that's in front of them now, because like, I've never met you before, they're like, but you came back in time to warn us not to go to 1942. He's like, I've never, okay, whatever, you crazy people. And it turns out it's like, well, because this is Rex before he got access to, time travel and went back to warn them, because time travel is confusing like that. And lo and behold, what we ended up seeing in that flashback was he was kind of glitching out and kind of faded away. Well, we ended up finding out at the end of the episode why that was. It's because Eobard tracked him down and killed him. The way Eobard was sounding, he made it sound like him and Reverse Flash had a bit of a history. He was like, the fact is that you kind of gotten in my way before because you went back in time and warned the Legends. And they're like, oh yeah, they said I disappeared. And he's like, oh, not... Well, he's like, I left or whatever, vanished. And it's like, oh, you didn't vanish. You just kind of disappeared from history and did the usual speedster thing and right through his chest. Now, whether he's dead or not, I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards the fact is that he might be dead. That's kind of why I'm thinking maybe that is why it's Justice Society Vixen, because he's time traveling, kind of probably trying to track down. She'll probably try and track down the Legends before they leave, because I don't know if they've officially left 1942 yet, but maybe she's going to start time traveling with them as a way of getting revenge for what happened to Rex. And the way she was acting, just from the conversation and stuff like that, is there something between her and Rex? I was wondering about that. That was just kind of interesting to me. I was really shocked when she said that line to Ray, because she kind of tore Ray down multiple times throughout this episode. She was, especially when he was like, yeah, I guess I'm still learning about this whole superhero thing. She's like, you don't have to worry about it because you're not a hero. And I was like, ooh, that's very harsh of you to say. Basically because Ray's not very trained, kind of bringing up what Sarah said last episode. It's like, without your suit, you're kind of nothing. At least, I mean, that's kind of sad to say. I mean, you can argue, you could be like, okay, without his suit, he's nothing. It's like, he's not nothing. He still has his brains. That counts for something. It's the same thing as, would you say the same thing for Stein if he wasn't half a Firestorm? It's kind of a little crappy. But I mean, she kind of pulled it back a little bit, because she was like, the fact is, you could have injected yourself with that serum and got powers, but you didn't. You did it. You used it to save, Henry's life. So it's like, that's very heroic of you, so... I'm just very curious to see, will this be our last time seeing the Justice Society? Like I said, I'm pretty sure the whole Justice Society thing is kind of a family thing, because so I'm assuming that maybe they'll get to a point where they end up running into the Justice Society, but it's them their descendants or something like that. I think that'd be kind of cool. I'm just curious to see where that all plays out. I want to know what Eobard and Dark's plan is. What are they doing? Well, how are they, how is this helping? Well, his main focus has always been hey, screw over the Flash. Just because I hate him with every fiber of my being. So, but maybe this is him just trying to step up his villain game. Another thing I was just literally just thinking about, I'm wondering if anything, would there be any Flashpoint repercussions that we see in this show? Because I told you yesterday during the Arrow podcast, I was like, yeah, from now on, every time I say Flashpoint, I'm gonna say it like that. I'm probably going to end up forgetting that, or I'm just going to eventually get annoyed at myself, because I can be pretty annoying. Something someone had thrown out there is that maybe the future that they're traveling to is kind of like everything that, by the time the Legends start time traveling in season 1, maybe everything that's happened because of Flashpoint is already set in motion. So the future they went to when they went to Star City, what was it, 2046 or something like that, that's already set in motion. At that point, Flashpoint had already happened and Barry had already changed the timeline, as to explain why when they went to that future, John was there instead of it being Sarah. So, John is in Diggle's son John rather than his baby Sarah. So that's kind of the question of I don't know. Because it does kind of bring up the question of is everything meant to be? The fact is that John existed in everything. Does that mean that future will always lead to go that path or not? Maybe not. I mean, you change enough things, I guess. What I really find most fascinating is the fact is that Sarah is possibly because the fact is Stein kind of passes the leadership off to Sarah, because it's she's the most level-headed, I guess. other teams, she's the most precise, she's the most well-trained person in the team, so it's kind of a no-brainer. I just found that very interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what she does as the team leader, how she decides to kind of run the team. Because Sarah's very unpredictable, in my opinion. It's like, she's not the easiest kind of like the pinpoint. It's like, what she will do, what she decides to do, how she decides to lead the team. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the future. It's going to be very interesting. At the very least, I can say it's going to be very, very interesting. Really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Cutting things a little short this week, so yeah, sorry. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.